Welcome to Smart English Stories. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more English stories. Hello, dear. Welcome to Smart English Stories. I hope you all are fine and doing well. Today in this video, I am going to explain about best topics to learn English so that you can improve your listening skills and enhance your pronunciation skills. We can improve our English with such beautiful topics. Let's listen these topics to improve your English speaking skills. Hello everyone, I am very happy to see you all today. I hope you are ready to listen to a story. This story is about a trip I took to a big and beautiful city called London. It was a very special trip, and I had many feelings in my heart. I will tell you everything that happened, and maybe, by the end of the story, you might feel some of the feelings I felt too. The day I decided to go to London, I was very excited. My heart was beating fast because I had always wanted to visit this city. I had heard so much about it, and now I was going to see it with my own eyes. The morning was bright and full of hope, and I felt like something very important was about to happen in my life. I packed my bags carefully, making sure I had everything I needed: my clothes, my shoes, and a small book where I wrote down all my thoughts. I was ready for a new adventure. As I locked the door of my house, I felt a mix of happiness and a little sadness. I was leaving home, but I was going to a place I had always dreamed of. The journey to London was long, but I didn't mind. I looked out of the window of the train, watching the world pass by. The trees, the fields, and the small towns all looked so peaceful. I felt calm as I thought about what I would see and do in London. I was full of dreams and hopes. When I finally arrived in London, the first thing I noticed was how big everything was. The buildings were tall and the streets were full of people. I felt small but also very curious. I wanted to see everything, to explore every corner of this new and exciting place. I took a deep breath and smiled, ready to start my adventure. I walked through the streets of London, my eyes wide open, taking in all the sights. The sounds of the city were new to me, and I loved the way it all felt so alive. There were people everywhere, talking, laughing, and going about their day. I felt like I was a part of something big and wonderful. As I walked, I saw many famous places. There was a big clock called Big Ben and a river called the Thames. I had seen pictures of these places before, but seeing them in real life was different. It felt like I was in a dream, and I didn't want to wake up. I took my time, enjoying every moment. But as I continued to explore, something unexpected happened. I met an old man sitting on a bench by the river. He looked sad, and something in his eyes made me want to talk to him. I sat down next to him and smiled. He looked at me and smiled back, but his smile was full of pain. The old man started to tell me his story. He had lived in London all his life. He had a family, a wife, and children. But as time passed, things changed. His wife passed away, and his children moved far away. He was alone now, sitting by the river, thinking about the life he once had. His voice was soft, and as he spoke, I could feel the sadness in his heart. I listened to him, feeling my own heart ache for him. I could see how much he missed his family, how lonely he was. He told me that he came to this bench every day, hoping to see someone he knew, but no one ever came. His days were long, and his nights were even longer. He had so many memories, but they were all in the past. As he spoke, tears came to my eyes. I could feel his pain as if it were my own. I didn't know what to say, so I just sat there, holding his hand. Sometimes there are no words that can make things better. All we can do is be there for each other, to listen and to care. The old man looked at me and smiled again, this time with a little more warmth. We sat together for a long time, just watching the river. The sun was setting, and the sky was turning pink and orange. It was a beautiful sight, but it was also a little sad. It made me think about how everything in life changes, how nothing stays the same. But even in the sadness, there was a kind of beauty. The beauty of memories, of love, that never really goes away. Eventually, I had to say goodbye to the old man. I promised him I would come back to visit him again, and he nodded. As I walked away, I felt a deep connection to him, a bond that was formed through shared emotions. I knew I would never forget him or the story he had shared with me. My trip to London was full of many more adventures, but meeting that old man was something I would always remember. It taught me that even in a big city like London, where everything is new and exciting, there is still room for simple human connections. It reminded me that we all have stories to tell, and sometimes those stories are full of sadness, but sharing them can bring a kind of peace. As I left London, my heart was full. I had seen so many wonderful things, but it was the people I met, the stories I heard, that stayed with me the most. I knew that I would come back to London someday, but even if I didn't, I would always carry a part of it with me. The city, with all its beauty and all its pain, had become a part of me. After leaving the old man by the river, I continued my walk through London. The city, with all its lights and sounds, felt both familiar and mysterious at the same time. As I wandered through the narrow streets, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to this city, something hidden just beneath the surface. As the evening turned into night, the streets grew quieter. The busy crowds disappeared, leaving only the soft hum of distant traffic and the occasional sound of footsteps echoing through the empty alleys. I found myself drawn to a particular street that seemed darker and narrower than the others. It was as if the street was calling out to me, urging me to explore its secrets. I hesitated for a moment, unsure if I should continue. But the curiosity within me was too strong, so I took a deep breath and stepped into the shadows. The street was lined with old buildings, their windows dark and lifeless. It felt like I had stepped into a different world, one where time stood still and everything was forgotten. As I walked further down the street, I noticed a small light flickering in the distance. It was coming from a narrow doorway tucked between two tall buildings. The door was slightly ajar, and a faint, warm glow spilled out into the cold night. I could feel my heart beating faster as I approached the door. There was something about it that made me both excited and uneasy. I pushed the door open gently and stepped inside. The room was dimly lit, filled with the scent of old wood and burning candles. It looked like a small antique shop, with shelves lined with strange and curious objects. There were old books, dusty paintings, and trinkets that seemed to have come from faraway places. It was a place full of stories, each item holding a secret waiting to be discovered. As I wandered through the shop, I felt a strange sense of déjà vu, like I had been here before, even though I knew I hadn't. The air was thick with mystery, and I could feel a presence, as if someone or something was watching me. I turned around, and there, in the corner of the room, was an old man. He was different from the man I had met earlier by the river. This man had sharp eyes that seemed to see right through me, and a face that was both kind and stern. He didn't say a word, but he gestured for me to come closer. I walked up to him, feeling a mix of fear and curiosity. The man reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, worn book. It was old, with a leather cover that was cracked and faded. He handed it to me, his eyes never leaving mine. I could feel the weight of the book in my hands, as if it was more than just paper and ink. It felt like it carried a story, a secret that was meant for me to uncover. I opened the book and saw that the pages were filled with handwriting, but the words were in a language I didn't understand. The letters were strange and unfamiliar, yet they seemed to speak to me in a way that was deeper than words. As I turned the pages, I noticed a small piece of paper tucked inside. It was an old photograph, yellowed with age. The photograph showed a young woman standing in front of a building that looked familiar. She had a gentle smile on her face, but her eyes were filled with sadness. I looked closer and realized that the building behind her was the same antique shop I was standing in. I felt a chill run down my spine as I tried to make sense of what I was seeing. The old man watched me closely, his expression unreadable. I wanted to ask him who the woman was, but before I could speak, he raised his hand as if to silence me. He pointed to the door, indicating that it was time for me to leave. I didn't understand why, but I felt that I had to obey. I nodded, clutching the book and the photograph tightly, and slowly backed out of the shop. As soon as I stepped outside, the door slammed shut behind me. I turned around, but the shop had vanished. The street was empty, and there was no sign of the doorway or the flickering light. I stood there, stunned and confused, holding the book and the photograph that now seemed like a piece of a puzzle I couldn't solve. I made my way back to my hotel, my mind racing with questions. Who was the woman in the photograph? What was the meaning of the strange language in the book? And why had the old man given it to me? I couldn't sleep that night, my thoughts consumed by the mystery I had stumbled upon. It felt like I had been drawn into something far bigger than I could understand, something that was meant to remain hidden. The next morning, I decided to return to the street where I had found the antique shop. I retraced my steps, walking through the same alleys and turning down the same narrow street. But when I arrived, the shop was gone. There was no trace of the old man, the doorway, or the light. It was as if it had never existed. I spent the rest of my time in London trying to make sense of what had happened. I visited libraries, museums, and old archives, searching for any clues that might explain the strange encounter. But no matter where I looked, I found nothing. The book and the photograph remained a mystery, their secrets locked away in a language I couldn't understand. As my trip to London came to an end, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had been given a glimpse into a world that was hidden from most people. A world where the past and the present were intertwined, where memories and stories lived on in the shadows. I realized that not all mysteries are meant to be solved, and that some secrets are better left unexplored. On my last day in London, I stood by the river where I had met the old man. I thought about everything I had seen and heard during my time in the city. I thought about the people I had met, the stories I had been told, and the secrets I had uncovered. London had shown me a side of itself that few people ever see, a side that was filled with beauty, sadness, and mystery. As I watched the sun set over the city, I felt a sense of peace. I knew that I would never forget my time in London, and that the experiences I had there would stay with me forever. I had come to the city in search of adventure, and I had found so much more than I had ever expected. I had found a deeper connection to the world around me, a sense of wonder and awe that I would carry with me for the rest of my life. And so, I said goodbye to London, knowing that the city's secrets would always be a part of me. I returned home, my heart full of memories, my mind full of questions, and my soul forever changed by the journey I had taken.